Today we're going to change out the selector springs for the K-Series transmission. So this is the RSX K28-2 and it's running a 6-speed K-Series transmission. Last time we changed out the Acuity shift bushings. Now we're going to have to actually change out the selector springs, which is actually going to require us to take out the selector here. And it's a pretty intensive process because we're going to have to use Honda Bond to put it back. And we're going to be using and replacing it with this new box here. It's the K-Series transmission spring upgrade. So these are the selector springs. It comes in 2 springs. I'll show you guys side by side what the old and the new one looks like, but it's supposed to be stiffer than the old ones. And the first thing we're going to do is, one, take out and remove these shifter cables so we got a little bit more room, especially this one here. And then the second thing we're going to do is actually remove these bolts that connect the shift selector, but there's also a bolt down here. All right, so we have the 8mm hex here, and I have a 1/2-inch breaker bar. What we're gonna do is try to insert this 8mm. All right, so we have it in, and we're just gonna try to break the seal. It looks like I've broken the seal. I can feel it. Now I'm just gonna get a regular socket, sorry. Just a regular socket, and we're gonna take it apart. When we put it back, we're probably gonna have to put some Honda Bond around the threads just to seal it in. But for now, we're just focused on removing it. So I just moved the selector out of the way, shifted into a gear, and we're just kind of taking it apart now. You can see it's kind of currently connected to the hex, but that's the bolt we're taking apart. So I've taken it apart and we're pulling out the plug. There's a little bit of transmission fluid, and then you can see all that sediment there. Sorry. See a little of that transmission fluid, and then there's some sediment. So that's all the extra gasket that we just took off. So we're gonna have to put a little bit more gasket after we clean the surface. But now we're ready to actually take out the shift selector. For now, I'm just gonna put this back just so there's no debris coming in there. But we've at least broken off the first, or loosened the first bolt that we need to actually kind of remove. So our next step before we take out the shift selector is to remove the shifter cables and the bushings. We're going to take off the cotter pins. I'm also going to take off these brackets here. So that's one out. So I've slided one shifter cable out of the way, and I'm going to take out the other one. And now we have both of them out. And we're just going to break it loose with the breaker bar. Two. 3, and the fourth is right in between the selector itself. There's like a little hole that allows you to take it apart. So before we take out the selector, I just wanted to recap. You're taking off 4 bolts, and don't forget to remember which bolt goes into which hole because they're at different lengths. So it's going to be staggered. Longer bolt in the top right, shorter bolt in the bottom right, as well as the top left, and then another long bolt for the bottom left itself. So at this point, we're ready to remove the shifter section. And what we have to do is actually take out that first bolt that we originally taken out, and then we can pull out the selector. It might be a little bit harder to take out because it's connected by some gasket, and we're gonna have to clean off that gasket, but that's kind of what we have for now. So we're gonna remove everything now. As mentioned before, we're gonna take off that bolt in the front that we just kind of left on there. There it is. Gotta clean off the gasket, but we're gonna put it off to the side for now. And then we're gonna slowly lift this whole linkage out. So one of the challenges of removing this shift selector is actually not getting off the 4 bolts, but actually just kind of prying off that gasket and knowing where to pry it. I believe I could just stick a pry bar here. I actually have a screwdriver, but I think I can stick a pry bar there and just kind of pull up. But I'm gonna try a few things and see if this actually works. All right, so that actually worked. So I took a screwdriver and put it right underneath this metal part here. So it's right through those 4 areas. And you can see it kind of lifted off of it. So it did pull the gasket out. So we're good to go there. And we'll take a look at how we pull it out. It should just pull out all the way, but we'll see. So I'm pulling it up all the way out right now, and it looks like I don't really have any issue. So this is the shift selector. So you remember neutral is lined up with that bolt there, so I just kind of pulled it out directly up. And that's what we have. Has all this extra RTV gasket Honda bond that we're gonna have to scrape off later. But for the most part, this is out, and I'm gonna put it aside. And we're gonna cover that little bottom area so it doesn't get contaminated. And if you noticed, as we get closer to that area, there are 2 dowels. One is actually on the shift selector, and there's another one here. And that's just to kind of keep it stationary. So that's why we couldn't actually hit it to the side, or we had to pry upwards to remove this RTV, mostly because those dowels were holding it in as well. And as you look a little bit closer, you're gonna see a little extra RTV on the side. Make sure that stuff doesn't fall in, but we're gonna have to scrape all of this out before we reinstall the shift selector. So for now, I'm gonna get a little towel, microfiber towel, and just kind of cover it up. And we're gonna put that little bolt back, and I will do the shift selector tomorrow. So as you saw earlier, we pulled out the shift selector, and you can see it here. And this is where the selector springs are. As you can see, I'm gonna rotate it around. This is the inside. It's coated with some transmission fluid, and you can see the selector springs there. There are 2 of them. There's a big and a small one, and I think the big one is for like the 5th gear selection, and then the middle one is like 1st and 2nd. But we'll see. We'll really see when we actually get in there and actually test it out with the car. But we're going to be changing it with this, as I showed earlier. It's the Acuity K-Series transmission spring upgrade. And what that involves is they're supposed to be like stiffer than stock. They didn't specify how much, but I think it's about 80% potentially. And you could feel that there's a little bit more tension. I haven't taken out the stock one yet, so I don't have a good comparison. But that's what we'll be changing it with. You can see the part number 1887, and it fits all sorts of K-Series transmissions, from Civics, 7th Gen, RSX, CRV, Cords, Elements, really anything that takes a manual transmission, 2015 and prior, that's a K-Series. So we're going to leave that aside. I just wanted to show you guys what that looks like. It's pretty cool, actually. I would say. So I think you can get these if you really wanted stock ones. You can get them online on Acura Parts Warehouse for probably about like $2-3. This was about $30. So they cost a lot more, but supposed to add more performance. And what we're gonna do is disassemble this shift selection system. We're gonna take out like this thing. Let me grab the bolts. So we're gonna have to clean out this bolt when we reinstall it. But this was the they call it the interlock bolt, and we're gonna have to torque it back to spec and put gasket around it. But just an overview of the selection, the gear selection. So this was neutral. When the bolt, you can see that little hole right here within this center gear selector lever. And with that neutral, this was the front. And I think that this piece here is the interlock, and this is the interlock bolt. So this bolt actually went in between here. That's why you have to take the bolt out, because if you didn't and you try to pull this up, it would just kind of hit this long piece here. So now that it's out, I'll put that aside. This whole mechanism is your shift selector. You have a dust cover here. And this is your change lever, this long rod. You have the shift selector springs within it. And then you have kind of all these plates. This is the interlock mechanism. But in order to pull it out, you're gonna have to take out, if I get a better angle, this bolt here. This bolt is, I think it's torqued, I think at 23 foot-pounds. And once you take it out, there's gonna be a washer there as well. So we're gonna need a 12 millimeter, and I think it's gonna be tough, but I'm not really sure. We're gonna get in there and see kind of what happens. But that's what I have here today. So a few things we're gonna use. We're gonna use this little blade just to clean off any excess gasket, but we'll do this when we reinstall. We're gonna clean on both sides. Here at this kind of like selection housing area, as well as like on the transmission. We're gonna need new silicone, new RTV, whatever you use. A lot of people use Honda Bond. I prefer Honda Bond since it's a Honda engine and transmission, so we're gonna use that. Then we got the 12 millimeter, and then we have a torque wrench because we want that bolt back at its proper spec, which from what I can tell right now from the manual, it says 23 foot-pounds. Let's go ahead and see if we can take it off. And so I'm gonna just, let's see if I can clear it. Yeah, I can clear it with just a 12. I don't need that 3-inch extension yet. But we are gonna go loose. See if we can loosen it. So 12 fits, and it's tough. I'm having trouble here. Yeah, we're gonna need probably like some form of breaker bar, and it's probably tough because I have nothing holding it down. But let me try to get, you can either get a drill and go reverse. I actually have an impact gun, so let me go ahead and get that, and I'll reverse it out right now. So we're gonna take it apart now. And just to show you guys what, I haven't fully taken the bolt out. It's about to come out. There's a little washer rack here, as you can see. It's tough, there you go. If you see that little washer here. So make sure the washer goes back with the bolts. So you have the middle spring, you have the large spring, then you'll have this this stopping plate here that holds the spring down. We're gonna have the interlock mechanism, and that's how we're gonna take it out. And we'll see what other parts come out. But it's supposed to spring out, so we have to be a little bit careful when we're taking it out. So I'm gonna do it now, and we'll see what becomes of everything. I'll put a little pressure in my hand just to receive some of that tension. Shouldn't be that strong because it's the weaker spring, but we will see. So it's loose. I can feel it getting loose. So we're taking out the bolt now. We're going to grab that washer because it's going to fly out. I'll just go ahead and put it back on the bolt so we make sure it comes back. And now I'm going to take everything out. So I'm going to pull it out. And you can see that it's coming out pretty easy. I'm just going to take it out slow. And it looks like this part slid out, but we're going to keep it back together. We're going to put it back together later. But the mechanism still holds. We just got to make sure, if you can see as I get closer, that the rod goes in between these things. So there's like a little tiny spring here, but I'll just leave it up here for now and we'll put it back. And there it is. So this is the large detent spring and this is the small one. There's a little washer up here. So just make sure you keep the washer there before you put it back in. That's where the 12mm bolt was. And these are the springs. So we're gonna put this back in anyways. So let me feel it. A little side-by-side comparison between the two. You could see that the Acuity spring so much thicker and it actually expands a little bit higher. I'm not sure if it's because this is worn and this has been, you know, it's fresh, hasn't been used, but this is a lot of slack, and this one I can feel a lot more tension when I'm pressing it. In terms of size, you look at that, the Acuity one's bigger. So let's take a look at the smaller spring, which they say it's for first and second gear, but you could tell that this one is a lot weaker than that one. Also taller, just like before. Texture-wise, this is a little bit more kind of worn. This has a darker kind of tone to it. And so this is what's going to be replacing it. Old and new. All right, so ready to install it. So we're going to take out the springs. I took them out earlier just to compare, but it's going to go back the exact same way. And so this is going to go, the middle one's going to go first, the smaller one, and the top one is going to go right up top. Pretty simple as that. If you're curious, if you mix them up, you'll be able to tell through the tension. But if you really wanted to be 100% sure that it's an Acuity spring, you'll see a little bit of Acuity and the part number right in the corner here. Very hard to see, very subtle, but it's there. And for the smaller spring, same deal. It's literally right at that second coil there. But that's pretty much it. These OEM ones, much thinner, doesn't have any serial number that I could see on it. But you're going to put the Acuity one in first, and then you're going to put the large one up there. I don't think direction really matters, but totally up to you guys. And then once it's in, you're going to have to reinsert the whole assembly and then tighten that screw. So I'm going to grab the assembly now. In an attempt to put back the assembly, I actually lost control of this spring and it fell off. This is the return spring. So you have two types of arms. You have the interlock right here, and then the interlock bolt is going to be facing outwards towards the engine or towards that interlock or towards the shift selector. So you have the interlock, and then you have this arm with these ridges. You're going to place the arm into the interlock like this so that the gears are faced towards it, and then this little piece of the arm kind of slides through the interlock. And so now you know that's in the right orientation. At this point, And then other thing you have to look at is where the interlock, the bottom part of the interlock, there's a kind of like a gap here. And so this arm with that little piece coming out is going to fit within that gap of the interlock. And you'll know it's right because you'll see it like that. And then at that point, you'll take the spring and you'll rest the spring at that kind of corner there. So it's grabbing on. And then you'll take this top piece of the arm and this little piece that sticks out, not the point, but the little piece that sticks out, you're going to stick it through the interlock, have the other piece of the spring connect to this side of the other arm, and then you can turn it. And when you turn it, you're going to center it and it's going to align. And that's how it was before. So I'm just kind of showing you, if you lose track and you need to put it back together, that's the general order. So once you have everything is reassembled back together, you're gonna place this interlock downward where this kind of groove is, and this little triangle point or triangle arm is going to be the one on the bottom. And you're going to start to insert everything. All right, so this is a quick check. I got everything back on. It was kind of a pain to find the hole for the bolt and just kind of slide everything down. But if this is center, where you put the fourth bolt in, your interlock should be facing out way, so you can put it back, and then the bolt hole is going to be there, the new spring's in, and then that's pretty much it. So we're good to go. All we need to do now is just torque it back at 23 foot-pounds. So I'm going to go ahead and get a torque wrench, and we'll go from there. 22. All right. A bit hard to torque it at 23 foot-pounds, but I was able to get it. So the screw is on tight. We have the washer on there, and everything lines up the way we need it to be. So now we're ready to install it. The only thing left we're going to do is just make sure all the gasket is off of the inside of the assembly. And so we're just going to scrape it out, or just pull what we can. And I'm just going to glide a nice blade across the surface just to make sure it has a really smooth mating surface. So we're ready to reinstall everything back together. We have the new Acuity Selector springs within it. You can see here everything's kind of lined up, ready to go. We have the interlock mechanism here facing front, where the new bolt, the old bolt, is going to actually kind of just insert itself into there. We've scraped off the gasket. It's pretty much clean from the bottom. Outside's a little dirty, but that's okay. And the rest of it, we're just going to make sure we just take off some extra dirt, because, you know, we're handling the inside for a little bit, trying to get the new spring in. So we're just going to wipe off any extra sediment or just kind of anything we put on there. And we're going to bring this over to the car. I'm going to show you guys its mating surface, and then we'll just kind of reinstall it. So we're ready to reinstall it. This is pretty much the kind of top of the transmission. You can see I've already scraped off excess gasket. Make sure when you're scraping, you kind of cover it up so you don't have anything else fall into that kind of transmission area. But once you do, this is what it looks like. It's interesting to see. You actually get to see inside of the transmission. You see all the gears right there. and then you're going to insert the selector rod into that. Make sure you line it up with the dowel pins. I have one on the transmission, the other one is going to be on that right corner that's on the interlock. Move everything out of the way, and then we're just going to go ahead and reinstall it. First thing we need to do is just prep the gasket. So I'm going to actually get some Honda Bond, put it around this surface and put it around the selection mechanism, and then we will put it back. All right, so Honda Bond's going to prep the surface, and what we're going to do is just going to start to squeeze it out slowly. I'm going to take out that first layer, just because it's probably dried up, and we're just going to rub it around the edge of the unit. Make sure you put enough so it's clean enough, but not too much. And wipe off the excess afterwards. And then just kind of take the blade if you need something fine and just kind of wipe the edge of it. All right, and then I kind of put some Honda Bond up there, so I'm just gonna wipe it down real quick. And just a really thin layer of Honda Bond around it, and we're ready to reinsert and reinstall everything. So Honda Bond's pretty time sensitive, so you want to get this all done within 5 minutes or less. So we're gonna reinsert it now. So we have the shift selector up in front, and we're just gonna put it and place it directly into the car. So the other thing we're going to do is actually, what I did is I cleaned off this interlocking bolt with a brash drill brush, the kind of a wire wheel, and so now it's all cleaned up. And so all we need to do is put a little Honda Bond there, and reinsert it back into the front of the engine, or front of the transmission. So we're just gonna hand tighten this one as well, and then we'll get to torquing. All right, torque specs. The 4 bolt in the front, for a 5-speed transmission, it's 8.7 foot-pounds. For the 6-speed K20A2 transmission, it's 9 foot-pounds. So we got it set to 9 right here. So we have it at 29 foot-pounds for the interlock bolts. We're gonna go ahead and begin to tighten it. All right. And we're just gonna wipe off the excess gasket there. All right, so we have the Acuity selector springs installed and everything back in order, bushings and kind of the lock brackets installed, and so everything is pretty much good to go. And so all that's left is for us to try it out. So I'm going to go into the seat and just see if there's any difference in the shifting. So we're back in the car, and in the driver's seat we have the Acuity selector springs installed, and so now it's really about, is there a difference? Going left and right, it's more firmer going to the right side. It's probably from that bigger spring. On the left side, it is a little bit tighter, but still really not as tight. Much better than stock, but not as tight. So going further, I'm going to go in first, let go to second, let go to third, fourth, fifth, sixth. first, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, reverse. So reverse is more definitive. I can really feel that. Going to fifth gear from third, from fourth to fifth is more definitive. It looks like it goes back. Looks like it does go back a little bit faster, not too much, but just a little bit. I don't have detent springs, so like Acuity doesn't make it, but Hybrid Racing makes detent springs. And from what I've heard, it makes it go a little bit more firmer into gear. Like you really have to be firm on it. But maybe that's an upgrade for the future. But overall, like I do feel a bit more tension with the selector spring. And so that's probably a good thing. You know, before it was a little too sloppy, too soft. You kind of had to just kind of guess it in your in gear. This one, yeah, this one I do feel like it's a little bit better, especially in fifth and sixth, and that's reverse, obviously. So, in a few days, I'm gonna take this out for a spin again once I get some of the other things I'm adding to the car done. Because the car's on jack stands, there's no shocks right now or front struts because my Fortunatos had a leak, and so I sent them back to Fortunato for it to be fixed. And so I'll be running stock shocks right now. But once I get those on, because I had to reorder them, we can take this out for a test drive. Not too fast because my alignment will be off, but we can see how this runs. So far we've done the Acuity shift bushings. Then we've done the Acuity selector springs. This is still using the stock box. This is the stock rod. I need to maybe get a short shifter, and maybe that'll help a little bit. But the only thing we're not going to do is the detent screens, or not yet. But maybe in the future. I should have did it when I did my transmission motor mount swap, but it's not too hard to access, so that'll be easy if we need to do it. But overall, like the install was pretty easy once you know what you're doing. It took me a while to figure out the procedure and just how to like push off the old sealant. Mine was really stuck in there, and then once that was off, it was pretty easy. And hopefully you saw in the video that the pulling out the springs and then putting back together was easy, but hopefully my steps have broken it down so it's easy for you guys to visualize. But thanks for watching. Thanks for making it this far. Hopefully you can subscribe to the channel. It'll really help me out. But I'm going to keep making more RSX videos, and the next one is probably upgrading the shifter here.